Detective Comics 1070 Ram V rating with Stefano Raphael on the art.
Mm-hmm.
So this is doing a lot more of the Arkham stuff. Bruce kind of starts to sort of sniff a connection between them and everything that's going on in the city after one more meeting with Arzen. Which all seems very fair, because it's like, yeah, he does feel a bit suspicious the way he's talking about stuff. You know, and then other than that, just kind of continuing the investigation side of things. It's a bit of a slower issue. The big thing is that towards the end, Ram V's new team, they're getting their own miniseries in a couple of months, kind of like come, you know, interject into the story and give her some intel. I think it'd be fair to maybe say that that might feel a bit forced, because it's like, hey, here's this new team that's coming in a few months.
It felt very wedged in, especially considering how they're introduced. However, I feel like Ram V executed it fairly well.
I'm looking forward to that book.
Yeah, well, I mean,
yeah, so am I. But I think if this is them just gone now after this one little appearance at the end of this issue, I'm going to look back on this and think that was very shoehorned in. But that's all it was.
That's fair. And also, if you're doing that, maybe do it closer to that release, right? Because that's not coming out till May.
Right.
So there's definitely that.
I will say, though, the positive of that is I do like that they kind of just show up and be like, you guys aren't thinking about this in the right way, right? Like, you guys aren't putting the right stuff together because you don't have, like, you know, not that you don't have the skills, they have the skills, but you're unaware of all the other stuff that's going on. Like, you're missing pieces of the puzzle. Here are those pieces. So I do like they kind of show up to just kind of course correct. And it makes them seem like a big deal, because if they can get into Babs, right? You know?
They must be good, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it caught me off guard because I've not read too much into what that book's going to be. I've kind of just seen like a really short thing and like the covers. Yeah. I did not realize the Vigil was a team. I was just under the impression it was that first guy that you see with the mask.
I mean, to be fair, it took me like a couple of panels or like a page or whatever to realize that that's who this was, because I didn't really remember them from the little teaser story. It was as they were talking to each other though, and they've got like the kid hacker and stuff. I was like, oh wait a minute, I think this is his team, isn't it? And sure enough, by the end it actually names them and calls them the Vigil. I was like, okay.
Yeah, when the electrical guy shows up, I thought, I'm like, oh no, Babs Goose is cooked, because this is, you know, the Organs. And then I remembered that guy from the Lazarus Planet short.
Yeah. So the main thing that they tell her though is that all the sort of the tunnels and stuff under the city are kind of acting to funnel the like feelings and thoughts of the city towards a machine that they've got under their building that's harnessing it and being turned into power effectively. So obviously it's a pretty interesting idea that they're prodding here. Which,
I did like the way it looked like a head.
Yeah,
under the map.
Yeah,
that was all right.
Well, I also like that they bring in Thelema and the occult side of things too. Like, that's a very, you know, Ram V doing Justice League Dark kind of stuff. You know, so to tie it into like that kind of history, that side of, you know, darkness going on in Gotham, of course, you know.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, I think if I have a critique of this issue, perhaps, is that it does feel like a series of like relatively unconnected scenes rather than like telling a full story. You know, you've got like a segment at the start which is Grundy in shoes, or now Cheshire Cat as she's calling herself, in the tunnels, and Grundy fighting off these SWAT members and stuff.
Well, yeah, and they try to put an asthma in him, and he spits it out, which I thought that was rad as hell.
He punches it out of himself.
That's right.
Which might end up being important later. Maybe he'll be a secret weapon against them.
Well, and again, for what Grundy represents, right? If you go to his origin in the Slaughter Swamp, and like he's kind of like this dark spirit of Gotham, you know, kind of like you know, Ram V going like, you know, Gotham has its own like immune system built in, right? And Grundy's part of that. And there's, you know, they're not going to be able to put these asthmas in everybody. And, you know, when you compare that with like Harvey, who had this whole struggle about it, you know, and you know, made the trade with himself over Batman's identity to purge the asthma, you know, the fact that it can't even infect Grundy, what does that mean?
Or you could
going
even
forward?
or you could even look at it a different way. You could say that both of them naturally have ways of fighting it. So with Harvey, it's the two identities kind of like working together and like forming an alliance. So he's got like a natural immune system in that sense. Grundy's more blunt, and he just punches himself to make him vomit it out. And this idea
is
that
as well, like, because Grundy is so blank, it's like the opposite of
Harvey.
Harvey, where with Harvey, because there's like two personalities, it's like, oh, there's too much for it to take over.
Right.
But it's just this idea, much like the city, that each individual major character in Gotham might have their own defense system, their own kind of antibody way of like fighting off whatever the Arzans are going to throw at them, or the Argams, I should say. Arzam's just the one guy. So then there's like Bruce at the his parents' gravesite, questioning if he is doing more harm than good as Batman, and talking about his history and all that. You don't quite see the pearls dropping, but you do see a couple of panels of him in the alleyway.
But him walking away with the Bat monster is definitely a new image.
It's definitely a very symbolic kind of look of like, okay, and at that moment in the alleyway is when he really accepted the inner bat, even if he didn't know it yet. He didn't ascribe the idea of a bat to what he was feeling yet. But
but that was the first feeling of him wanting this, vengeance for his parents.
Yes, but in hindsight, it's kind of. But the idea has been approached before, is that Bruce Wayne, as he was, kind of died in the alley with his parents, and that's when Batman was born.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, when we got to the him talking about the alleyway and the pearls, I was like, oh no, Ram V, you're better than this. And then you turn the page and get that Bat demon, walking away with young Bruce, and I was like, okay, I can deal with it for something like that.
You did something new, at least visually. Even like you say, thematically, it's kind of the same old ground, but it looked cool.
Well, and it fits in with the story of Gotham that Ram V's saying, telling of, Gotham has this way of watching out for itself, and this Bat demon embraced Bruce, whether because this happened to him, had this happened in Metropolis, that might have been something different.
I've been reading The Cities We Became recently. I think it's N.K. Jemisin who wrote that. And it's kind of like got a similar theme to this, where the idea is cities, when they become advanced enough, will like form like a physical avatar, like protect the city and stuff, and look after various aspects of it.
That's very much what Ram V's kind of doing with Gotham, right?
Yeah, so it definitely feels that way. There's definitely some parallels with that.
Yeah, interesting. He's paying a lot of respect to recent continuity. Brings up Bruce almost getting married. Bruce sort of thinking about that, and that he almost stepped away, and even sort of uses that as a kind of part of his prompt for like his deep thought about what's going on right now. Is this idea that Selina said, no, Gotham needs Batman, and that Batman kind of needs the darkness to kind of function as Batman. Without it, he can't really be Batman anymore. And now, this is kind of that's tying into like, is he doing more harm than good? Is this darkness is this just all a net negative, effectively?
Yeah, it's really a lot of it's going back to that conversation with Gordon in, I don't know if it was the last issue or the one before.
Yeah, it's the last one.
Yeah, where Gordon's like looking out for it and like, hey, someone's got to look out for you, as someone behind the mask.
Yeah,
but is that kind of, has he got too much of a family now, so to speak?
Yeah, well, actually, my pitch there after that scene, which I thought was great, was that Bruce finally tells Gordon who he is, and Gordon effectively fulfills Alfred's role going forward.
As his confidant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily betting anything that's going to happen, but it felt like such a natural like way to go, given losing Alfred, Gordon's kind of like being there to patch him up recently. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think I haven't mentioned it before, but I appreciate how much they've stuck to not having Alfred at this point. Obviously there's always time. It'll always come back at some point.
But there's always an Alfred from another universe who could pop in quite easily.
Yeah, but it's taken longer than I thought it was gonna, and I respect that.
Oh. And it makes that death feel important, right? Because it's had these echoes and ripples
more so than it ever did when we actually read it.
It was funny though, because that was like what, 2018. It's actually been like almost 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
If you told me at that time, we'll go 5 years without Alfred, I'd have laughed at you.
Yeah.
Well, but me and Pete also talked about too. We're getting these different Alfreds in different universes. Like in Dark Knights of Steel, in the other one, War of the Dead Gods, Deceased.
Yeah.
So it helps that
And even
there's a character fulfilling it.
Even in Batman proper right now, there's like a multi-universe story where he's in a different Gotham and there's an Alfred there. Like, you know, they're definitely using the image and like the idea of Alfred across the
but they're still,
the table.
at least in the you know, main continuity stuff, they're still playing with the fact that he doesn't have an Alfred.
Now, if you had told us when he died that it would be gone at least 5 years, which I think that was 2018, maybe it was 2019, maybe it's only been 4, but
either way, it's longer than I thought.
Even 4 years feels like a huge amount of time. Although it doesn't actually feel that long. When I think about like the stories, it doesn't feel like it's been that much time.
It's been a while.
Still 4 years, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. Arzin shows up conveniently again and starts talking about the history of his father or whatnot. The bigger thing, though, as far as history goes, though, Batman goes to see Talia, and there's a little detail that I quite like, actually, is that he's feeling a little darker, maybe like his younger self again, because he's like breaking bones a little bit more aggressively. He's been a bit more threatening with these sort of techniques.
He's more brutal. I mean, it's almost as if he's letting the shadow claim him for right now.
Yeah. But he goes to see Talia, and Talia, you know, he asks about these stories. He asks about the Orgums because he's starting to suspect they're involved in something. And the big revelation here is that long ago, you know, the Orgum, who was the guy at the time who went out to like, you know, it's kind of what Arzen's doing now, which is go out and save somewhere to prove himself. He had Gale, he had Shavod with him, and Niang. I don't know if we know Niang, but the other two are definitely been around.
Yeah. Shavod's the lady with the multiple pupils.
Yeah,
right?
and Gale's the werewolf.
Gale's the werewolf.
But there's a fourth, and the reveal at the end of this little story is the fourth is a young Ra's al Ghul. So we're connecting the Orgums now into Raz.
Right.
Which makes sense because Talia knows about them and tried to come and stop them. So it makes sense that there's a connection between them.
It just felt to me like there's no way that Raz doesn't feel the Orgums are a rival, right? And it wasn't just the stuff with Ubu at the beginning, right? Of this run, and with Talia trying to stop Bruce from, you know, getting involved early on. But just this whole, you know, the whole vibe feels very much like it would run counter to Raz's. So I like this too, because it also ties it back to the story that Talia had told Damien, you know, that was in, you know, issue 2 or 3 of this run, you know, about the asthma. That's where we had introduced the asthma, and
it was like the second issue, I think. Maybe.
Yeah.
And
it was kind of an allegory for, you know, Bruce and whatnot. So the fact that, you know, Raz had known these guys, and I almost wonder if Arzen Orgum isn't just kind of a Ra's al Ghul type figure that's just constantly reborn, but not in the same way where Raz goes into a Lazarus pit. Whereas if we're playing with this concept of time and time loops and whatever, that, you know, Arzen's, you know, great grandfather is actually Arzen. Like, it just keeps repeating itself.
Yeah,
you know, because of this machine.
I do like the idea that as well, that like, Talia is kind of the current Al Ghul for him, you know. So she's filling that place, so which is why it can be like, oh, this can be different this time. There's some, you know, she's a very different person to Raz, and you know, she has her own motivations and schemes. So you know, things could go very differently this time.
Yeah. And then you get the section at the end with Babs and the Vigil showing up to tell her of all the info. So it is a little bit segmented, and it is a little bit like they just pop in and they have to look, they're even smarter than our main characters for this issue to make them seem cool, so that we'll all want to go read what their adventures are like. So it's a little surface level in that sense, but yeah, I have no problem with them being sort of teased a little bit on the run up to their book. It's just how it's done is maybe a little bit forceful. So yeah, ours pretty solid. I thought all the Grundy stuff early on looked really good.
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, because I think the art does look really good, but also I don't think it's as good as the previous artists we've had on this book.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's coming off of like Reese and Albuquerque, who I think are a little bit of a just a small step above this. And again, this is still pretty good. And without that comparison, probably wouldn't have even complained about it.
Yeah, this is a touch, just I guess slightly cartoony versus Albuquerque.
Yeah,
It's lacking just a little bit of the. I think both Albuquerque and Reese have like a little a darker edge. They have like it's a little bit looser than this. This is really heavy on the inks to try and like almost make up for that. But I still think it's a bit tighter than their work is. It just feels a little bit different.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what are you giving Detective Comics?
I'm giving this an 8. I enjoyed this issue.
Connor?
Slightly has to do with Grundy.
Yeah, I'll still give it an 8 as well.
Yeah. I'll probably go 7.5. I like the setup of some stuff, but I thought the Vigil inclusion at the end was a little bit forced. But I did like the Grundy stuff, and I liked Batman kind of struggling with like his past and like the idea that maybe he's doing more harm than good is quite interesting. And I like the discussion about comparing Grundy to Two-Face and how all the other major characters that we're encountering in the story are all sort of being affected in different ways by this Arkham invasion.